What is going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, and it is a beautiful Tuesday morning here in London. We got those three beautiful words from Fabrizio Romano regarding the new manager, Thomas Frank, set to become new Spurs head coach. Here we go. Agreement done with the manager on contract terms and staff. Brentford set to release Frank for a fee in the region of £10 million. Sasha Tavaleri says that Thomas Frank is now the new Tottenham head coach. He is the replacement for Ange Postecoglou over 2 weeks after winning the Europa League with Tottenham Hotspur. Harsh, but I do think it is potentially the right move for Tottenham.
Well, time will tell, as Levy said once upon a time. Time will tell if it's the right decision. But I think look, the fan base is warming to Thomas Frank. I think everyone is starting to get a bit excited about this potential appointment. Everyone knows what a brilliant coach and what a brilliant job he's done at Brentford. And also, I think people appreciate that where we are as a club at the moment, we do need someone a bit like Frank when it comes to his ability to change up his tactics mid-game, his ability to play different systems, his ability to overperform his wage budget and get the best out of his players, all these different things that he did at Brentford, hopefully can translate to Spurs as well. We have a lot of younger players, and he's very much a hands-on coach, whereas Ange very much is an overseer, leaving the coaching to his first-team coaches, which is not a criticism, it's just his approach, whereas Frank is very hands-on the touchline. Ange is very much a guy who likes to stand, I should say, with his arms crossed, kind of overseeing the game and making decisions that way, whereas Frank will definitely be very different to that. He'll be barking orders, he'll be running up and down the touchline, shouting at his players, demanding different things, and showing probably a lot more passion than Ange does on the touchline. So it's a big change. It's a different direction as well. It's hard to judge what kind of Tottenham we're going to see under Thomas Frank, only because if I'm looking at it's hard to say the approach is going to be that different in terms of how we play, because if I look at Brentford and I'm trying to judge Frank on how Brentford play, low possession, lots of long balls, and kind of a bit lower block, that kind of stuff, less high pressing for most of all. But Frank adapts to what he has. And obviously he's going to have more quality at Tottenham, and he's going to have a different players with different skill sets at Tottenham. So are we going to see Tottenham play like Brentford? Probably not. We'll probably play in a different way. And
in certain games he might.
He might do, but I think I think the common theme will be. I've just been reading. I've been listening to Frank interviews and stuff, and he's very adamant. He wants to play offensive football. He wants to be on the front foot. He wants to play high pressing football, and maybe he'll feel at Tottenham that he's got the players to do that, and he's got the players to play more of that football that he wants to play. It's hard to judge in terms of direction if it's going to be a massive sea change to Ange in terms of is it going to be a lot less possession? Is it going to be all these different things, or is Frank going to play in a different way than he did at Brentford? Time will tell with that, but I think it's on that front. In terms of having a new set of eyes on the players, on the talent that we have, having a different approach, there is definitely something to be excited about.
For sure. I think there's a lot to be excited about, and all the criticisms that the majority of the fan base did label with Ange Postecoglou about tactical flexibility, about improving players, about being a hands-on manager, about being animated on the sidelines, everything that you've just mentioned. Thomas Frank has that all in abundance, and I'm very excited about what Thomas Frank can bring. Look, it doesn't come without his caveats and worries and going into the bit of the unknown, because Frank's never managed at this level, and Brentford to Tottenham is a big step up. He's never managed in Europe, and he's never kind of had to juggle those 4 competitions in one season before. So of course there's a lot of question marks there, but I can't help but get really excited for this managerial appointment. I think he is a really good manager, and I think he will, there will be an adjustment period. Historically, when he's gone into Bromby, when he's gone into Brentford, it's taken time to get his message across. It's taken time for them to really see those consistent results. At Bromby and at Brentford, he didn't win for his first 8 games, and that's quite significant. really is, because if he comes in here and doesn't win for his first 8 games,
2 points from 8 games.
you know what I mean?
Again.
Like Nuno, obviously, he came in the first 10 games. After 10 games, he was sacked, and he won his first 3 games. We just could see, like, tactically, it was just never going to be the right fit for Tottenham. Whereas with Frank, I agree with you. I've been watching his interviews as well, and he keeps persisting, saying that he wants to play high-pressing, free-flowing, attacking football. And I think that at Brentford, when you look at when they first came into the Premier League, it was obviously very defensive. But I think last season was probably the most offensive that Brentford have been. And that's no surprise that it's after, 3 years being in the Premier League, and they're kind of like a solid Premier League outfit now, and he's trying to take that on and progress that and move on his footballing style and get them to play more in his kind of vision. I mean, look, it's all in his vision because he's been there for so long. But as you become more accustomed to playing Premier League football, you probably, see his vision a bit more and want to play attacking football. And I think that's what always was the vision. If you look at his teams in the Championship, they were always very attacking teams and scored a lot of goals. So I think that's the way he wants to play. And he was playing defensive football because he knew that's the way to get results. And if he was going to play attacking football straight from the off, as a Brentford manager in the Premier League, he was going to get eaten alive and probably gone straight back down. So look, he's very clever, very tactically astute. And I think it's a really exciting appointment for Tottenham. And look, I just call for the Spurs fans just for a bit of patience, particularly early on in his tenure. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of signings we bring in. If we do make kind of big changes to the squad, he's got a big task on his hand, managing the club train numbers and managing and juggling those numbers so we can sell players and sign players, because it's going to be hard to sign players without selling players. No, never mind the finances, just the pure numbers of the squad going into next season. That's the reality. And maybe when they were talking about sell to buy, maybe that's what they were talking about in terms of not finances, but just the sheer squad numbers. Because we were looking at it the other night, we couldn't see a way how we bring in signings without selling players.
Yeah, unless we make some really tough calls, which are unexpected. Obviously, as a fan base, we're expecting the likes of Basuma, potentially Richarlison, maybe even Romero to be moved on. But with a fresh set of eyes on it, with Frank coming in brand new to the job, is he going to want us to have a second look at them? Is he going to want to? Does he feel like he can do something with these players? He's previously mentioned Basuma as as part of a very good Premier League midfield. So I think he does rate Basuma, and we know Basuma is a good player on his day. But obviously, we've seen him for 3 years at our club, and we know his problems and his lack of concentration, all that kind of stuff. But Frank is new to it. Obviously, he knows Basuma from his days in the Premier League, but in terms of managing him day to day, he's obviously very new to that. So is he going to want to give someone like Basuma another chance? Could he convince Romero to stay, or is Romero definitely off? Richarlison, is he going to keep Richarlison around, or is he going to be happy to sell him? All these different things. And if those players aren't leaving, we've just given Davis a new contract. There's a good chance he might leave. He might stay. And then you're looking where else in the squad we can get rid of. It's all of a sudden. It's tough to see who we could sell, and the problem right now is we have a squad of 23, was it, or 24?
I think it was 23, yeah.
23, and
it could be 24. One of the two. It doesn't really matter.
And Champions League, we can only right now, given the homegrown numbers, we can only have a squad of 21. So, given that's the case, that means we have to sell 2 players just to fit the Champions League squad. And we have to fit we have to fit people like Kinski in there who weren't in there last season. Tell might re-sign. There's all these different things, and so who do we get rid of? Who are the players that are going to be moved on? And how much time is it all going to take? Because I think Frank's going to want to have a good look at the squad, because I think even the players we're talking about getting rid of, right, Richarlison, Basuma, these kind of players, they walk into the Brentford team that he had last season. And I think, well, maybe not Richarlison, but definitely Basuma. He walks. He would probably love to have talents like that. So, is he going to look at that and think, "Wow, why are we getting rid of these players? What amazing players!" Or is he going to think, or is he going to have to be ruthless and think, if we're going to improve, something's going to have to give here.
Some ruthless judgment calls are going to have to be made this summer, regardless. It really will. Like, I don't think there's any surprise about that, and it's going to be interested to see how quickly these judgment calls are going to be made. Are there going to be some club signings before pre-season? Are there going to be some club sales before pre-season? Because we know that players like Bentancur, we know players like Bissouma, we know players like Sonny, they're all going into their last year of their contract now. So it's either pretty much put up or shut up. It's either offer them a contract or sell them, because they're not going to... Are they going to run the risk and let them go into their last year and lose them for free next summer? I'm not sure they're going to do that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, but this is my point, Frank's going to have to take a look at all these situations and think, who do you want to keep? Maybe he'll give Bissouma a new contract. Who knows? He's going to have to look at all those situations and decide. Or maybe those situations are predetermined. Sometimes you come into a football club and Bissouma's already thinking about leaving, and even though you might like him, it's best for everyone if he parts ways. Maybe that's how they feel. Same with someone like Richarlison. Maybe there's already talk of him leaving, and even though Thomas Frank might look at him and think, actually, I could do with someone like him, maybe it's kind of taken out of his hands. And that might be the case with some of these players. But you're looking around the squad. I mean, giving Davis a new contract doesn't tell me that's a ruthless decision. They want it, either they're prepared to keep him on and be part of the squad, or they're looking to sell him. But they've given him that new contract, and that tells me there's a chance he's going to be part of the squad next season. Who else is there, really? I mean, I'm looking around the squad, and who would we be happy to see the back of right now? I mean, the only other ones is maybe Bentancur, but again, I think he's a good player. I don't really want to get rid of him. So, but he's one who's got 1 year left on his deal. Is it going to be a ruthless decision? Is there going to be a ruthless decision on Son with the year left and him in decline? And then who else is there, really? Dragoshin, maybe?
I think Frank will like Dragoshin.
Yeah, but I think Frank will like Bissouma and Richarlison as well. But he's good.
Yeah, but the difference is that Bissouma and Richarlison, first of all, have been here for longer. Richarlison have had massive issues with injury. Do the club trust him to, move on with him and be, consistently fit over the next couple of seasons? Bissouma has had his own issues as well. Dragoshin literally only come like a year ago, however long ago it was. So there's a lot more kind of pointing towards letting Bissouma and Richarlison go for the struggles that they have had at this football club.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'm just saying we something has to give. I guess those players, but is that enough even? If we let's say we let go of Bissouma and Richarlison, that means okay, well done. We now have enough players for a Champions League squad. So we now after that point, we have to as many players as we sell, we can buy. So if we sell Romero, that means we can buy one player. Now, most likely have to be a centre-back, potentially. Maybe not. Maybe we will just go forward with what we have. But if we sell Romero, that's one player we can sign. Sell Sonny, that's two. I mean, after that, maybe Bentancur, that's three.
And all the rumours are is that we are going to retain Matisse Tell. So, I mean, that's already one that's going to come in without, someone fresh coming in.
Yeah. So I don't know where we go when it comes to these unless we are going to be really ruthless. Maybe Son is on his way out. Maybe Bentancur could be leaving. Maybe these things will sort themselves out. So, but is it going to be a massive summer of change in the window, or are we going to be left disappointed?
Well, we've heard the non-stop words this summer is massive summer of change. 2 board members have bit the dust. Scott Munn's bit the dust. Ange Postecoglou's bit the dust. Is that going to go on to the playing staff as well? It very well could do, but we'll have to wait and see how it all pans out. But what we do know is that Thomas Frank is our new manager, and I think it's time to get excited. I've been excited for the last few days. Sim, it's time for you to get really excited, man. Come on.
I'm on board the Frank train. Choo choo.
You don't sound convincing.
Look, as I've said, I've got nothing against Frank. I think he's a great manager. I'm just very, very frustrated with this football club. But hopefully, if there's more change in the boardroom, and that can seep down to the playing staff. But look, I think Frank's a great manager. Big up to him. I'm excited about his appointment. I'm excited about what he can do with this team. I think there's reasons to be really positive about him. I do think he's a very underrated manager. It's about time he got a chance like this, and I think he deserves a chance like this, 100%. And I back him to do a good job, 100. I do. I do back him to. As much as I'm always giving the bad scenarios, I'm just giving hypotheticals about what would happen if X, Y, and Z happened. I don't think any of them are going to happen. I do think he's going to do a good job here. I think he is going to profile these players correctly.
I like it that under Thomas Frank you're giving the bad hypotheticals, but again, when Ange was here, you're only giving the good hypotheticals.
What are you talking about?
You kept saying, oh, because everyone else was giving the bad hypotheticals.
Yeah, we won Europa, didn't we?
What if he did this and what if he did that?
Yeah, we won the Europa.
Just be positive, man.
I'm just giving the hypotheticals about what would we do if X, Y, and Z happened.
I get what you're doing. Yeah.
Because we've, the club have sacked Ange in their statement saying that they want to what's called compete on multiple fronts. That's why they sacked Ange. So are we going to hold them to that? Is that what they're actually going to judge him on? What if he does have a really bad start? What if he has a start like Nuno? Are we going to definitely carry on with him, or are we going to Nuno him, or are we going to Ammer him it? We're just going to have to let it run. I think personally we have to give him time. This is the kind of appointment you don't appoint him for 10 games and hope that it goes right straight away. You have to give this manager time to build something. But then, that could cause a lot of frustration with the fan base if we're in a season of transition yet again, which seem to be perennially in a season of transition.
Yep.
So that is the frustration. But it's hard to say I'm willing to give it time, because I am, and I think it's the right thing to do, but it's definitely something that annoys me that we're here again having to give another manager time. It's just a frustration I have. Nothing to do with Frank, though. Frank is a great manager, and maybe he won't need the time that I'm talking about. Maybe he will have a great first season. I think you can't rule that out, because I think he's a manager who can profile players correctly. Hopefully he can get his ideas across quite quickly, and I do think as well, obviously he has very good level players that he hasn't had before. Maybe those players can translate his ideas very, very quickly because they're higher level than what he's had. And I do think he's a good manager. I do think he'll get the players on board very quickly. So look, you can't rule out maybe he'll have a good first season and maybe all is going to be brilliant straight away. But there's also a good chance it won't be. And in that scenario, it's going to be very interesting to see how this club and how this fan base reacts in that eventuality. But as I say, we do have to give it time. That's just the only course of action.
Yeah, look, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. Obviously, everyone has their apprehensions about the board and about what their next step's going to be. Very unpredictable people. We don't know what they're going to do, and we don't know what they're not going to do as well. So I think it's fair to have those reservations about what Daniel Levy and ENIC, what their intentions are going forward, for sure. I completely agree with that. And, I'm obviously very much against what this board is about and how this board run this club. But Frank is here now, and we just need to give him the most positive vibes. We need to back him to the fullest, and I believe this is the right decision. I think when you're looking at every manager appointment post Mauricio Pochettino, I think this is the most one that is the right fit for this football club. I really believe that. So
it's one that makes the most sense.
Yeah, 100%. And I think he's a guy that's just going to get it. I think he's going to get it. I think he's going to, be happy to be here as well. I think it's going to be such a source of pride for him to manage Tottenham Hotspur, the biggest job that he's had. And I don't think, like a lot of people I've seen, like people talking on social media and stuff, like he's going to be out of his depth. I just don't believe that by any stretch of the imagination. I think there could be an adjustment period for sure, but I think he's going to take to it well. And I think after that adjustment period is over, I think we're going to see a really good team under Thomas Frank, and I think everyone's going to be buying into it sooner rather than later.
I guarantee
as
soon as he's spoken to Spurs fans and the media, everyone's going to be on board fan-wise. I guarantee you that. He's a great talker. He knows the right things to say. He's a very passionate guy, very clever guy. The way he talks about how he wants to play and all these different things, and the way he talks about his players and the job ahead, I guarantee as soon as we hear him speak as the Tottenham manager, as a representative of our football club, everyone's going to be on board. I don't think you're going to get any dissenters.
And he's a very open book as well. He just says it how it is. There's no beating around the bush with Thomas Frank. It feels like in every press conference, if they lose a game, if they win a game, he'll tell you exactly why it happened and potentially moving forward what's going to happen. So I really like Thomas Frank and the honesty that he does bring to press conferences. Sam Tebutu says Justin Cochrane is under discussions to follow Frank to Tottenham, who was Frank's assistant manager or assistant head coach at Brentford, which is an interesting one as well because he's very highly rated inside the Brentford circles. He was actually favourite to take over from Frank if they were going to promote within for the head coach role. So very highly thought of in the Brentford setup, and maybe that's why they put that post up on LinkedIn last week.
As assistant, yeah. Look, that's very interesting. And he wasn't he a coach at Tottenham? Wasn't he?
Was he? I don't know. I think that.
I think apparently he left in 2018. I read to join. Yeah, he was a coach at Tottenham at one point, I think. Anyway, but look, fair play, bring him in.
Yeah, you're right. He was a youth team coach at Tottenham, 2019. Yeah, and he's also coached at youth level for the England setup.
That was it. He went to leave for England. Yeah. So bring him back. Looks like it's a good appointment, and we need to. I think Frank definitely has a good relationship with his staff, clearly, and there's a very cohesive relationship. That's going to be the one thing that could make or break his tenure here is his relationship with the board and how he integrates himself into the club. Because literally at Brentford, he was like the centerpiece of what was a very kind of well-oiled machine there at Brentford. Everything ran very, very well, and obviously, yes, him and his recruitment team were very much what drove Brentford forward, but it's like a very holistic approach with that whole club. Everyone was together. Everyone stuck together. Everyone was on the same page with everything. Now, we know at Tottenham, it's not always like that. There's a lot of different agendas. It's a very political club. And Frank's going to have to get used to that. Frank's going to have to buy into that somehow. And there's going to have to be... Look, apparently he came with assurances that they're going to operate in a different way, and supposedly. And let's see if they stick to their word in terms of the hierarchy. But we've heard the hierarchy give assurances before, and it hasn't exactly turned out well. So kind of like believe it when I see it kind of thing when it comes to the hierarchy. But I think Frank is such a great guy, great manager, deserves his chance. I really, really hoping and praying, even just for his sake, that we're not the club that chews him up and spits him out like we've done with so many other managers.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. That is got to be the biggest reservation from Spurs fans, because we've seen great managers come through this door and leave fairly quickly. Mourinho, Conte. Look what Nuno's done this season with Nottingham Forest. It's clear that he's not a bad manager. So, Ange after 2 years gone. So the list is endless of managers that have come here and left, and you got to say, like, most of them are probably good managers, just that they couldn't work within the parameters that this club set. So let's hope Thomas Frank isn't the same. And let's hope, that is a fair concern to have, because we chew and spit out pretty much every manager that comes through this door. So they've got to manage it in a different way. They've got to give him what he needs and the tools he needs to go and do the job and to get what they want. They want top four. They want trophies. They want to be a successful football club. They want to get back to the vibe that we had with Maurizio Pochettino fighting at the top. And you're not going to get there with the squad that we have now. You need to give them... he needs to have significant tools and significant squad, not just the first 11. He's going to need a significant squad to fight on all fronts like they want to do. So we're going to have to wait and see how this board react and if they are willing to actually give the tools finally to a manager to do the job. So they haven't done that in the past. So we'll have to wait and see.
I guess the only other question would be, not that it's helped Tottenham much in the past having these kind of managers, but is he a winner? Does he have that winner's mentality? Obviously, he's never won anything, but that's not his fault. That's been the job he's in. I'm not going to begrudge him for that. He hasn't had the chance to be in finals too often, big finals, and have the chance to show that kind of winner's mentality. But obviously, we've had just recently, gotten that final, got us over the line. We've had winners here like Conte and Mourinho, didn't exactly work out. But Frank is going to have to show that side to him at this club if he gets those opportunities to be in finals and semi-finals. And is he going to have that pedigree to show he's a winner. I'm not doubting there's a chance, but he just has to show it. That's just one thing, another unknown about him. Does he have that winner's mentality?
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, going into a new era at Tottenham Hotspur, as we say so often, but let's just hope and pray that finally Tottenham Hotspur have got it right this time, not just from a managerial perspective, but from the way that they're going to run the club and the way they're going to help Thomas Frank in the tools to do his job. So, yeah, we finally got the here we go. I'm expecting probably a club announcement sometime in the next 24 hours, I guess. It's got to come probably by tomorrow, you would say, at latest.
Would you say this is another rebuild, though?
It's not a total rebuild, no. I think the majority of the rebuild's been done. He just needs to have... look, don't get me wrong, the rebuild's not complete, but I think, like, the initial stages of it, of bringing in the youth players that are going to be the future of this football club, are there. So they just need experience to be sprinkled in with there. We need a six to come in. We need depth at fullback to come in. I think the main thing is regenerating that forward line still, because I think it's not fully there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I don't think it's a full. It should be anyway another complete rebuild. I don't think we have to completely do major surgery to this squad. As much as we did finish 17th, and I know that was bad. Look, you got to remember, Gray's a year developed. Bergvall is going to be basically from game one be ready to play Premier League football. Odebear, hopefully he's played a lot more. Hopefully he'll be more ready. Hopefully Tell, if he signs, he'll be more ready after 6 months as well of acclimatising to the Premier League. Van der Ven's obviously that bit older. So I think, for me, I don't think it has to be another rebuild. I think, yes, it's a different direction, another manager, but I don't see really a signing we've made under Ange that I think, they can't play for Frank. Like, there's no reason why it's not like in terms of the signings, we've made all these signings are only fit for Ange, and Frank can't do anything with them. I think Frank's a clever enough manager that he can work with a lot of what we've bought, and I don't think I wouldn't say this is. I think it's another direction, but I wouldn't classify it as yet another rebuild.
No, I think there'll be an adjustment period, like I said before, but for sure it's not another rebuild. We've got a decent squad there. We've got a decent squad, and I would say, in terms of squad strength, where would you put us? Probably around. Definitely, I think in the top 7.
Yeah, I think so. Probably above Forest, I would say.
Yeah, in the top 7. And I think, look, Man United are doing a good job to build their squad up and be fighting again in terms of the European spaces in the league. But I still think we've got a better squad than Manchester United at this moment in time.
When we don't have 12 injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens with the medical staff, because we know that they're looking to change that.
Funny thing is, last season, not the season that's just been the season before, Brentford had crazy injuries.
Yeah.
And a lot of their players, and also I think now the season Tony was banned as well for a large part, and they ended up finishing 16th. And they did stay up, but hopefully, I mean, I don't know why that happened. I haven't really looked into it. Obviously, I'm not a Brentford fan, but hopefully that's something we can avoid. But I don't know if that was to do with, why apparently they got a lot of injuries that year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of injury. I don't know anything surrounding that situation. In terms of other potential staff coming over, I really hope they bring over the set-piece coach that's been so successful. I mean, Brentford been one of the best set-piece teams in the league, haven't they, over the past couple of years? So,
always very inventive from their set-piece.
So I really hope that, because Romano did say that, he says that, was it Romano that said it? Yeah, he said that an agreement done is on the staff as well. So they know which staff is coming over, and I really hope the set-piece coach is one of those. Because he's done a brilliant job.
Whether he comes in or someone else, I'm sure Frank is going to have a set-piece coach. Yeah. Clearly, that's something that he wanted. Obviously, Ange made a thing that he didn't want a set-piece coach, but clearly Frank had one and was very successful with it. So whether it's him or he hires someone new, we are going to have a set-piece coach next year. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah.
Gianni Vio?
Gianni Vio, bring him back, yeah. Well, our set pieces significantly improved when he came in. He was brilliant from an attacking perspective anyway. But yeah, let's just hope. I think he's obviously being allowed to bring his staff over. Ange Postecoglou he just historically doesn't go anywhere with staff. He goes by himself, and then he manages with what he's got, and then he picks and chooses who he wants along the way. Like he brought in Jedinak, he brought in Montgomery, he brought in a few other guys. So yeah, Frank has a team around him, and it'll be interesting to see to what extent he brings over and which ones he is bringing over.
How quickly are we going to get a charm going for him? Because Ange, I think, was very quickly, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm loving Big Ange instead.
Well, we stole the Celtic one first, and then we had the I'm loving Big Ange instead, like midway through the season. So, maybe
I'm loving Big Ange instead was like after the first few games.
So,
because in the first 10 games we were singing that.
So, what do we think? Do we think we're going to get a song for Frank for game week 1?
We have to, and I think it'll be a nice touch if we could. First game of the season at the home stadium at Tottenham, do a nice little tifo welcome Frank or something. That'll be nice.
What, with the Danish flag?
With the Danish, I don't know about that. Too much red.
Too much red.
Maybe a Danish flag in blue, but that's kind of like the Finnish flag. So, yeah, just welcome Frank. You know, we don't need to put red in our stadium.
And do we think we will genuinely get some players from Brentford?
Greg B says, I'm loving Thin Frank instead. Yeah, but look, the Danish revolution is upon us. Johan Lange and Thomas Frank, they have worked with each other in the past, and hopefully that kind of relationship that they have will be a good foundations for us to move forward on now. You just got to hope and pray.
So what do we think our main formation is going to be? Do we think we're going to go 3 at the back, or do we think 4 at the back?
I think it's going to be 4 at the back.
I think that'll be that to start.
I think about wasn't Frank's main formation last season 4 at the back, and then when he played like a top 6 side, he went 5 at the back.
Yeah, but season before was 3 at the back.
Yeah, but that's because of who they are. Like, we're not going to be underdogs in the majority of games that we're going to be playing.
Yeah, but haven't we always said our squad's more suited to a 3 at the back?
I've said that, but let's see the way that Frank wants to play the 4-3-3. It could, it all very much depends, doesn't it?
No, I completely agree.
But I think he'll start with the 4 at the back for sure. And look, if he moves to a 5 at the back, I won't be against it. I'm fully backing whatever he wants to do in his vision. He's the master tactician, and let's see which way he takes us.
And he's apparently he pre-planned his sub before games. He has them ready, knowing what he's going to do before the game, and he also very much changes up his formations at mid-game as well. Very interchangeable, which is a useful thing to have. And that's also one thing I'm quite excited about, is that I do feel like I know Ange had his way of playing, and I'm not saying it's not modern football, but obviously he's been managing for a very long time. I do think he has changed his ways in terms of how he manages, before he started. But I do feel like Frank is, in terms of modern coaching, and in terms of being very much a manager who's up to date with all the latest things in the Premier League, who's on the pulse. I do feel like maybe Frank might be a bit more on that, very much like a modern manager.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like Ange, I'm not saying it doesn't work, because you still have people like Ancelotti winning Champions Leagues, but I think Ange is still quite old school.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like Frank is going to be a lot better in terms of profiling the players that he wants to come to this football club, because you see that not Brendan Johnson, but Ange Postecoglou, some of the signings that we did make, they weren't exactly, tailor-made for his system.
Who, Ange?
Yeah, like a Radu Dragusin, you know what I mean? Like, I think Frank, his background is talent spotting, and his background and the way he's profiled players to come into Brentford, they've all fit in seamlessly to what he's trying to do. I don't think maybe it was the same for Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. Obviously, we're hearing now that Frank isn't going to have final say on transfers.
But he is going to be in the conversation, obviously.
Yeah. And Ange said he did. Whether he's just owning those decisions as the face of the club, or whether he really did have final say, I guess we'll never really truly know. But he owned them. He owned all his transfers, and I'm sure if Ange wouldn't have accepted a transfer he truly didn't want. So I'm sure same with Frank. I'm sure Frank's not going to be in the conversation in the room saying, "I really don't want this guy," and they're just going to go ahead and sign him. But he's not going to have the final decision, and whether we'll see how that kind of plays out. Do we think we're going to get any player statements welcoming him or anything?
I don't know. I've never seen I don't think we've ever seen a player statement welcoming a manager before, have we?
Or an Instagram post or something. I mean,
I don't think have we ever seen that before?
Don't know. Can't remember. Probably not.
Don't think so.
Maybe from Son.
Maybe as the captain welcoming to the club. I think. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to see it, but I think the players will be bang up for this. I think they'll like this appointment, and I think once they get on the training ground, I think they'll buy into it fairly quickly.
Yeah, I think they're going to warm to him very quickly. I think you just need to have one or two conversations with him, and I think you're going to be bought in. Now, there's one thing being bought in, and there's another thing when they say run through a brick wall for you. That comes with time, that kind of feeling. Now, there's one thing liking a manager and thinking this guy's a good guy and stuff, but there's one thing really creating that connection where you would do anything, you'd run through a brick wall. And obviously Ange, by the end, had that. So that might take a bit of time for Frank to develop within this team, but I think he'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, Ange had that in terms of the Europa League campaign, but he didn't really have that in the Premier League, did he?
I'm just saying he had that within the squad.
Yeah, in the Europa League campaign. But he didn't have it like on a week-to-week basis in the Premier League.
I wouldn't say they weren't trying. It was just we were playing our second team.
Yeah, but it wasn't like... I mean, we were saying week in, week out in the Premier League, like these players look half-arsed.
Well, I wouldn't say the whole season. It was just... We know the reasons what happened in the Premier League. Don't need to rehash it. But I wouldn't say... For a lot of them, maybe near the end, but I wouldn't say like for a lot of the games they weren't trying. It was just they weren't good enough. They were on 3 days rest, having with 12 injuries, or there was a second team with very little playing our second team with a game that had very little on it. So
just had an update from Sky Sports News. They say that set piece coach Andreas Jorgsson could be part of Thomas Frank's staff at Tottenham Hotspur, so that's great news. Could be.
Let's hope he is.
Let's hope. Let's see where.
Was he at Man United? Was he?
Well, it looks that way. Yeah. When was he at Man United? Was there set pieces any good then?
I don't know. But anyway, that's positive.
Yeah. So look, that's the situation on Thomas Frank. Let's go and have